So we are live today with Kamil Banc. And yeah, we are doing this live stream because yesterday we published the podcast that Camille did for Right Build Skill podcast. It was an amazing episode. I really had so much fun watching it a few times during the editing process because Camille, you were absolutely on fire on the podcast. And yeah, let's recap like a few of the key talking points. And anyone here attending the live stream, if at any moment you have any questions for Camille about AI, please feel free to just type it in the chat. Camille is happy to answer them. But yeah, Camille, great to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me again. Really appreciate it. Always happy to talk to you, man. You always have this positive energy, and I can already see some folks are coming in. We got Ken Rutkowski. He's a really big guy. Maybe not in real life, but he's really big. He's a great friend, and also to your audience in general, even beyond this live. If you guys ever see me on a node on Substack, you want to just shoot me a question. Always happy to. Whatever helps your audience.
Amazing, amazing. So one thing that really stood out to me on the podcast is one thing that you said where you challenged people listening to the podcast to never say no to an opportunity again when they have like limiting beliefs, simply because now with AI, they have a tool at their disposal, a mentor, a tutor at their disposal 24/7 to figure it out. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I need to pre-qualify that. I'm not talking about just any opportunity that comes your way because there's too many. But as soon as you have some sort of a filter of what you actually want to do, nothing should be too big for you, I think. Especially when I mean, I'm not talking about you trying to play in the NBA and then, you stand there on the court and you don't know how to, throw a 3-pointer or you're like 5'7". I'm talking about everything that AI can help you with because, there is basically this little mentor that is a combination of all the mentors that have ever lived that's living right in your pocket that you can ask for advice. So if it's something that is in your field, let's say you're a solopreneur, maybe you're a consultant. I have a lot of consultants that are my subscribers that I help to make money with this, and they should not. There's this one guy. He was just thinking to um, work with like small coffee shops and all that, but then actually a bigger corporation from his town, I think he's in the UK, approached him, and he was just saying yes to the opportunity and then figuring out later how to actually tackle it. And guess what? The best way to do it is now because now you have all these tools that you can dynamically ask specific tailored to your situation on how to proceed, what to learn, how to be of best value for your client. So it's a good start to always start with a yes, as long as the opportunity fits into your greater, filter of what you actually want to be doing. Because you don't want to spread yourself too thin and just, do one thing one day and then the other thing the other day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would really say that dynamic is a key word there. And you can really tailor it to your own situation, your own scenarios, where it's like previously, if you had to figure something out, you had to Google it and you would have to hope that your specific scenario was available on Google with a clear explanation. Now with AI, you can feed it all your parameters, your own data, your own situation, and have AI almost like a personalized mentor looking over your shoulder on how to figure something out, right? And this is also something we talked about on the podcast where um, I see a lot of, let's say, solopreneurs or creators, and they are maybe overwhelmed or they're short on time, or they're like, I'm just starting my newsletter and I know I need a digital product, or I know I need to start some coaching offer, but man, it's all so much time, right? Now with AI, you can challenge yourself to do it way faster, like in a fraction of the time. And rather than saying no to that opportunity or saying, like, later, I'll do this someday, I'll do this later when I have more time, and let's face it, when do we really have more time? Right? With AI, you can challenge yourself. How can I do this right now with this personalized tutor? Uh, do it fast and just try it out. Might not always mean you will succeed the first time. That's okay. Like you can now say yes to opportunities You'll always learn a lot more from that. Now, I want to say, because we have a lot more people joining in over the past few minutes, so we're doing a live stream with Kamil Banc, and Kamil was on the Right Build Skill podcast. The episode went live yesterday. If you have any, yes, I love that mug. Let's put it up again. The mug. um, if you have any questions for Camille about AI, how to use AI in your business, how to use AI for writing, please feel free to just drop it in the chat, and we're happy to take a look at it.
Uh,
Um, Camille, what would you say to someone? Go ahead, go ahead.
by the way, guys, just so you know, we have a major lag here because Yari is in Europe. I'm in the States. Maybe that's why. So we kind of have to hand signal to kind of not speak over each other. But I wanted to give one piece of advice that to the previous point that you made on how to compress time and how to just work more efficiently. One way to learn that effectively with AI tools is to set constraints on yourself. So, for example, if you are a content creator, let's say you're a blogger or maybe a YouTuber or something like that, try to completely ideate, research, draft, and edit your next content piece only with the voice mode of an AI. No hands allowed. Okay, maybe you're walking down while you're walking, right? I just told you before we went live. I'm standing here on a walker. Um, Maybe you're walking. You have your AirPods in, and then you just do the whole thing from start to finish. And that way, you will learn how to just use these things more efficiently, and then they'll become second nature to you. So even when you have more time or you're at a computer, you'll be much more effective in using some of those tools. And that's just one example. But the greater point here is try to set constraints on yourself to kind of have to figure out how to, I don't know, I don't want to say it, but be lazy and productive.
Mm, I love that. I see we have a question from the audience from Samuel, who asks, "How can I leverage AI to help me be organized?"
Mm, well, it depends on what level of organization you're talking about. One of the things that we talked about on the podcast, which is still, uh, to me, is one of the most important things to be organized, is being organized here. And it goes back to what I just said: use voice mode because, and it's a little bit of a tangent, but I'll get there. So when you use the voice mode, it's kind of like typing. Here, check this out. Typing on this thing here, Swiss Hermes 3000, by the way. You need to have your thoughts and your goals kind of planned out, aka organized in your head, right? So when you have a voice mode, you also have to do that in a way. So that's definitely on a mental organizational thing. It is very helpful to use voice mode for that. Now, when it comes to what I think he meant, is probably more like having the maybe a system on how to arrange. I don't know if he's a content creator or if he's a small business owner or if he's an executive. Obviously, that changes a little bit, but the most important way to think about it is you need context, you need data, and then you need the right workflows to extract this data. Maybe this is like your a data point could be your Zoom call. It could be a combination of that and your calendar, and then you could infuse that with a prompt, and you can ask AI, okay, help me figure out how I can organize my week. What are the even I did this a long time ago, which is I took a screenshot of my calendar, and granted, it was a very well organized screenshot, explained exactly what is in each time block so the AI could read it. And then I asked it, okay, how would you design this more effectively? Thinking in this way, what are the tasks that I absolutely have to do? What are the tasks that I could delegate? And what are the tasks that are maybe not as important? So, kind of like the Eisenhower matrix, right? And so that's just a practical example. And the last point, at the very least, what everybody can do always is, again, learning how to ask the right questions. So remember that you can always ask how a specific tool would work with your current situation. So again, you need context. I don't know what he's doing, but let's say I'm a realtor and how can I get organized, right? Not a lot of data, but if you feed it with more data and your day to day, realtors are actually, especially in America, they're really good with calendar keeping. So that would be a prime example. How can I be more effective, right? Send them some metrics, send them outreach, close deals, all that type of jazz. So the more data you give it with a certain intent, aka prompt, the better the output will be.
Yeah, I really want to emphasize that the more context you give it, the better the output will be. And I do see some people say like, "Oh, but AI, it gives very generic output, generic content, generic answers." But that's only the case when you also ask it a very generic question. So the more specific you are, the more context you provide, the better the outcome will be, right? So let's say in your case, Samuel, the question is because maybe you're overwhelmed, you find yourself working more hours than you want. Then you can ask AI, okay, how can I optimize my time management? Because currently I'm working 50 hours a week and I want to really not work more than 40 hours per week. These are the exact tasks that I'm doing. Here's a screenshot of my calendar, like Camille said. And I feel that I am most productive in the mornings, right? Now, based on all this context, help me be more organized and save 10 hours per week. That's going to give you a radically different output than, for example, asking, like, how can I be more productive? And I think that goes for any aspect. And that kind of leads into the next question I see here. The question is, which specific AIs are you using for which type of creator tasks? And I would say, like with creator tasks, right? I'm guessing it's like writing, for example, producing content, maybe even creating digital products. Camille, what are your thoughts on that? What do you use for your creator business and for the AI Adopters Club, for example?
So, as a general principle, I try to always get as close to the foundation model as possible. So, I always try to use ChatGPT and Claude and Gemini. Period. I try not to get away, and then sure there are some of those wrapper companies, which is no problem at all. Nothing wrong with wrappers, but I rather figure out how I can use those tools directly than making it too easy for myself. So that's like a broad thing. But I mean, the typical thing is right now in the charts, I guess I just upgraded to the pro account again with ChatGPT 5. And although I don't use the deep research results very often in my final work, I do use it for kind of analysis of results that I get from deep research with Gemini. So Gemini is the number one tool for me for long form deep research. Perplexity is really good for short and medium form research that is sourced well. By the way, Perplexity is also amazing. Well, I was just looking for a car, and another fun thing here is I look on. I wanted to have like an old BMW Z3 Classic, right? And I basically just took a screenshot of the Facebook Marketplace and I attached it to Perplexity and I said, "Is this a good deal? How can I negotiate this down?" And it analyzes it. It looks for similar listings in my area and it gives me like negotiation strategies. So that's kind of cool too, real time results. So those are the two on research. ChatGPT 5 is great when it comes to um, ideas, I think. It helps me think a little bit better about certain concepts. Voice mode is unbeatable when it comes to the interaction. I just shared this article a couple of weeks ago about how to learn massive amounts of data relatively quickly so that you can hold a conversation. It's not magic, but at least you will have it in your passive memory. And that is with a giant prompt with ChatGPT 5 and voice mode. So that's really good. I know the others have voice mode as well, but you can't really upload a document and then have a conversation about it with the others just yet. Um, ChatGPT also surprisingly is it was really good with the image generation for my newsletter, at least, is very well branded and always on point. However, when GPT-5 came out, it kind of went out the window. It was really bad. The image creation didn't adhere to any of the project instruction prompts. But now that I can switch back to the 4.0 model, it's okay again. Okay. So that's that. I had a lot of fun with Banana when it comes to visualization, the Nano Banana on Gemini. I don't know if you played around with that. I had a lot of fun, however,
Mhm.
mostly just in personal stuff interacting between me and clients, like, hey, get a giggle out of them. It's good for my purposes. And the other visualization thing that I've been doing for a long time is Napkin AI. They just switched from beta to I think 1.0. So now you have to pay for it. And I happily paid for a year's worth because that's really great for visualization. There's a new company that just approached me this morning. Not sure yet if we'll collaborate, but what they do is basically infographics that are animated. So they can turn a PDF or your articles into a video with voiceover and animated infographics, which is kind of cool. But they're not there yet. They're not branded. Um, yeah, what else? I mean, I use Gamma for presentations. Um, I use all kinds of. I have it on my phone most of the. So, oh yeah, Grok is great as a second opinion on things sometimes. Yeah, uh, I mean, I try to stay too close to the foundation models as possible.
Mm, yeah, and what one thing I can really find with these AI tools, they're popping up. It seems like every minute, and most of them are based on like the base model, like you said. So I think um, learning how like about a few AI models, AI tools, and learning how to use that is probably the best thing you can do. Because if you continuously look for the newest AI tool, that can become a distraction in and of itself and prevent you from actually using AI to improve your business, make more money, be more productive. Just like with productivity tools, right? If you're constantly scouting for the latest productivity tools, it prevents you from actually being productive. So I'm really a person of like, okay, I know how to use ChatGPT and I know how to use it well, and that's the tool I mostly use. And I definitely know I'm missing out right on other AI tools. That's why I'm in conversations with you, Camille, so you can tell me what I should pay more attention to. But if it becomes too overwhelming because it's a fast moving space, just stick to the bigger models and learn how they work. I see a question from Sherry who asks, go ahead, Camille.
One more thing that I forgot, which is a big part of what I work with as well, is Notebook LM. It's really good for a lot of different things in combination with those other models. So if you let's say you really hone in on one of the big models, whether this is ChatGPT or Gemini or or Anthropic, I would definitely, the second tool should be Notebook LM, because those two alone, they can help you get a lot of work done. And then you have outliers like HeyGen, for example, which is okay, but then it gets too much into the flashy AI. I'm really all about boring AI that moves the needle for business. So I don't need too much visual stuff, but certain things you can't replace necessarily with those models at this point. Oh, and 11 Labs for voiceovers, right?
Mm. So a question from Sherry in the chat is voice mode a platform?
No, voice mode is a feature of platforms. Currently, if I remember correctly, um, ChatGPT has it, Grok has it. Got to be careful with Grok, though. I don't know how it is in Europe, but yeah, stay away from Grok, especially when you have children with the voice mode. They also have avatars now. The other thing is, was the third one? Perplexity is actually really good when it comes to finding things, and especially for the. Remember how I said drafting articles or drafting content? Perplexity is probably the best for that because it's really good at retrieving real time search results into voice mode. But if you want to have a conversation on a certain topic that your AI model knows about already, then ChatGPT Voice Mode Pro is the best. And also, a lot of them have access to your camera. So let's say, um, I had this series on LinkedIn last year before the newsletter, I would hook up my phone in front of a DSLR, and so I would have like this perspective of my phone. I would turn on the camera and I would walk through my house and uh, f- ask it things around the world and how it can help me with. So one of the things was I placed it on my computer on my desk, and then I took my ukulele and it started. I asked it to help me figure out how to put my fingers in order to learn some chords, right? So you can interact with the world as well with those models with voice mode.
Mm. And with voice mode, what I find really interesting, and you said it in the beginning of this live stream as well, but a few months ago when we spoke, you challenged me to not write again, not type again, but use my voice as much as possible, and that really changed the game for me. And I think that if you're looking to use AI for content creation, for example, the way I do it now is I'm just taking I'm opening voice mode on ChatGPT, for example, and I'm speaking my article into existence rather than typing it into existence because I find that typing goes pretty slow. You already start like editing your sentences here and there. Well, if you're speaking, just like you're speaking to a friend, for example, you can add so much context. So, for example, when I publish a Substack newsletter that's like 1,200 words, I first speak about 5,000 words in voice mode about the article. And then I ask ChatGPT to help me edit that and help me turn it into an article that flows well and like cut out the fluff. But the article is already like 5,000, 6,000 words, but with voice, all with voice mode activated. It's already being spoken into existence, and I can add a lot more context because you can just riff and you don't have to interrupt the creative process, for example, the brainstorming process. Whereas with typing, I find it goes too slow, actually. So that really changed a lot for me. Now I find myself. I told you, Camille, that I would actually write my articles in the coffee shop. That was like my productivity rule, and now I can no longer do that because I use voice mode. So I'm not gonna speak in a coffee shop like a crazy person. Um, yeah, so we see that we have a lot of new people here in the live stream. There is indeed a little bit of lag on the live stream. I am in Europe, Camille is in the US. We seem to be having some form of lag on the live stream. But for everyone who recently joined, if you have any questions for Camille about AI, how you can use AI in your creator business, please feel free to ask it in the comments. We're happy to answer that. Um, One thing that stood out to me in the podcast, Camille, is that you said that people shouldn't just use AI for incremental progress and saving a little bit of time here and there, optimizing a little bit here and there, but really pushing the boundaries of what's possible for them. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the reason why I thought about this is, well, I do it naturally in a way. I didn't really think about it, but then it made sense to me that a lot of people, I have a lot of friends in the creative industries, a lot of people from the film industry, music industry, and obviously writers now as well on Substack, right? And there's always a little bit of kind of like people throw shade or people are just really upset about newcomers that are using AI and they come into their field, their domain, and they achieve relatively close results to the bar that has already been set in their industry with relatively low effort, right? So it's a shortcut, right? Um, so what I'm advocating for is how challenge yourself how you could use this technology as a lever to achieve things that weren't possible before in the industry. Okay, and one example is I don't have it here with me right now, but actually I have something similar. Let me see. So last week I meet a potentially new client for lunch, and then so I do a lot of consulting on the side behind the scenes of the newsletter. Actually, that's my main income. I'm a strategic advisor for AI implementation into businesses, and so I meet a potentially new client at lunch, go back home, do my thing, and then I get a call back to meet for dinner again, right? So in the meantime, I got two kids. I eat dinner with them, but I have my research uh, workflow in the background running where I basically took the client's company, I took my service offering, put it together, and I asked, I think it was ChatGPT at that time, or maybe Gemini, I don't know. to kind of just do a outline and a completely random research on how we could collaborate. And this was not supposed to be a proposal. This was just supposed to be a talking point for the dinner conversation. Okay. So what it came out with was like I mean, this is not it, but it's basically like one of my case studies, like a 20-page report that I printed just like this. Okay. Like with all kinds of findings. And then when I go to the dinner, on my way there, I asked ChatGPT to make a summary of that with like 140 words summary, which equals around 60 seconds of talking point. It did that while I'm driving. I copy paste. Oh, you shouldn't be doing this when you're driving. Okay, this is me. So um, I copy paste that into HeyGen with my virtual avatar that says, "Hey, I'm Camille's digital twin. Uh, I'm Michael. Nice to meet you earlier today. I'm on my way to our dinner. Here are a couple of ideas what I wanted to talk to you about, and blah blah blah." It gives it the thing, right? And it sends it my digital twin. Then when I'm there, I give him this and we have a conversation, right? This is stuff that I couldn't be doing before AI, but now it's totally possible. Now, it might have not been the best possible research, to be honest with you. I didn't even look at it. I just trust my prompts and my workflow enough that I know that, the way I use these tools, they're not going to hallucinate. And it's something that I can stand behind. But it's something that is an example of how you could use these tools in your day to day. The real thing is the challenge is the creativity of what you direct these things to do. Okay. Because now, and this is, I'm actually going to rewrite the first post that I made on my Substack, which is called Welcome to the Director's Chair. I just checked it out today. Only got like 97 views or something like that. Obviously, it was my first post. But we're all now in a director's chair. We all got a promotion that we didn't ask for. And that, while this is cool, it comes with a new set of skills that we need to learn. And, some of the skills you can argue about it. To me, it's critical thinking, it's actually storytelling, and it's a growth mindset, okay? Lifelong learning. And then one more thing that's kind of like cross domain integration, meaning, I mentioned that on a podcast. You need to be able to, in your head, to hold multiple ideas from different concepts and try to connect them and use AI to connect them. That's where the magic happens. So that I hope this to wrap it up. I hope this inspires people to just think outside the box and think on how to use these tools to achieve things that weren't possible before. And the hardest part here is really the thinking part, the creative part, okay? Because everything else can be done. But, sometimes we just forget.
I see a good question here from the audience. The question is, I am curious about how I could be using AI differently. I'm currently mostly using ChatGPT, and I use it for editing my content, refining the ideas I have. I'm curious what tool could help me create images or visuals to simplify complex concepts.
Okay, well, there's multiple ways, and I think we went over some of them already. Uh, Actually, ChatGPT is pretty good with relatively simple infographics. Sometimes there might be a mistake in it, so you can't really rely on it, and you also don't get consistency with it. Napkin AI, I should be a spokesman by now. I always mention them. Excuse me. They're really good at visualization of your ideas. You basically just put a text into it and then it analyzes it and it comes up with its own visualization. Another pro tip that I can offer is if you have a piece of content, instead of just trying to visualize it with any type of AI, try to extract maybe the key points. Try to interact with the model to ask it, hey, if you were a graphic designer, what are the key points that you would try to visualize here? Let's say you have like an entire document, right? How would you represent the data in a simple to understand graphical way that is not too complex or something like that, right? So again, asking the right questions is really the skill here.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's the most important thing, right? Know um, that you should ask it the right questions, and if you don't know what questions to ask, you can ask that to ChatGPT as well. That's something you said on the podcast. I see we have just crossed over 100 people on the live stream. So again, we're doing a live stream with Kamil Banc because yesterday we released a podcast episode with Kamil on the Right Build Kill podcast, talking all about AI. I will share the link here in the chat if someone wants to check it out, or simply go to the Right Build Skill publication and you will be able to find it there. Um, Camille, what would you say to someone who is still hesitant to use AI in, for example, their online business? Maybe they're a bit afraid of it. Maybe they're a bit intimidated by it. Maybe they are hesitant to use it. What would you tell them?
Look, I mainly started this newsletter because actually I was at a gala that it's like a fundraiser for it's called Pencils of Promise, and they're building schools in third world countries. And what I really noticed when I was there, I was like, you know what? All these people are behind this cause because it gives them hope for a better outcome, right? And so, how can I translate that into AI? And so, the biggest problem with AI, in my uh, at least for my target audience, which is business professionals and business owners, it's the fear, right? It's the fear that AI will come and take our jobs or it outweigh our business. What we offer will now no longer be important. I work with a lot of people that do online courses actually, and or people that are in the digital space, and they feel like there's not going to be any money for me anymore, right? So the biggest problem with fear is ignorance, right? Not knowing the thing, right? We're scared of the dark because we can't see. And so the idea is to take them from the fear through education to understanding how they can use it as a lever instead of a replacement for themselves, right? Or, I mean, somebody else using it as a replacement of them. They can use it as a replacement of their current skill set. And then again, they step up one of the rungs on the ladder as a director, and the best answer is really education. So, that's the key. You have to be curious, you have to have a growth mindset, and, for all my generalists out there, you're in for a good time because generally generalists are adaptive. They know how to behave in uncertain environments a little bit better than specialists. But if you're a specialist and you have a growth mindset, meaning you're not just somebody who went to university, worked in their career for like 10, 15 years, whatever, and then they're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I got my strict parameters. I have my kind environment, so to say, that rewards my behavior. I'm sorry, but if that's you, that's where AI will come in first. But if you have a growth mindset, you actually have a leg up on everybody else because you have a very deep skill set in one. And then if you can adapt to a little broaden your horizon and let these tools help you, um, then you're definitely up. But again, education, education, education. If you fear something, it means you don't know enough about it.
That really was it for me as well. I remember it was about 2 years ago, right, with ChatGPT being introduced, and I remember for me, I think it was the feeling of, oh, this is cheating. And that kept me from using it. And fortunately, I had one of my friends who called me and said, this is going to change the game for your business. Listen to me for the next hour. Don't hang up the phone. Here's how you can use it to, like, as a content creator, as a business owner. And I'm thankful he did that because he kind of like forced me into the world of AI. And I was like, wow, this is a game changer. Um, and I think there is some sort of reframe maybe that some people might need to take, where it's like it's not necessarily cheating. It's just like when the internet got introduced, where now you had access to a bunch of information at one source rather than having to dive into all kinds of books in a library. It's just the acceleration of technology, and these tools are now here, right? I think if you use it in a lazy way, it's also going to give you lazy output, and that's not going to get you any results anyway. So it still is a whole new subject matter that you have to learn how to use it. And I still think it's, if you feed it your own context, your own ideas, your own thoughts, but you use it more as a partner, you use it more as a ghostwriter, for example, it's not cheating. It's just another tool to accelerate your process. Um, and I think in general, like just a sense of open minded is going to be helpful because this space moves so fast that I think, and maybe you have different thoughts on it, Camille, maybe not. But if you are not at least open to learning about it, this space is moving so fast that then it's going to be a real struggle years down the line.
Yes, and everybody who tells you that they know what's going to happen in like 2 or 5 years, they're full of crap because nobody really knows. However, if you learn the things of today, you can definitely kind of infer that you're probably further ahead than everybody else who doesn't, right? One thing I wanted to mention on, the cheating aspect and all that, I kind of mentioned it earlier already. Also, when it comes to reframing, when you talk to people, especially that goes specifically for service providers and business owners and all that. When you talk to people that are upset about your results because you used AI, they're probably not your customers, okay? Or they shouldn't be your customers because
Mhm.
the customer doesn't care how you do something. The customer only cares if you solve his or her problems, okay? And uh, for reading or writing, for example, in my opinion, there's only two ways how you can make money with writing online. At least, I'm not talking about like some famous people, right? It's either writing for education or writing for entertainment. Now, I think most of us are writing for educational purposes, solving some very specific niche problems, and especially in that niche, nobody really that as your client cares how you came up with that valuable bit of advice that transformed them from their current state to their desired state. They don't care if you used AI or not or how much you use it. They just care that you were there exactly at the time when they needed to hear it and solve their issue and then made them more money or save them time or lose weight or whatever, right? That's the main thing. Again, try to separate the noise from the signal that's actually valuable for your organization, right? It's the same thing with other things like let's say um, let's say you're a restaurant and you have really crappy photos from your menu, right, on your website. I actually did that in my hometown for a while. I took ChatGPT when it just came out with the new image model. I took a photo of the dish that I got and I said, turn this into a professional grade food photography shot. Boom, right? It does it. I show it to the owner. They're like, oh my God, my mind is blown, right? And now imagine you do that as a restaurant owner. Granted, it shouldn't look like this, and then the actual food looks like this, right? You kind of have to be reasonable here. We don't want to false advertise, but and there's ways to do that right, and there's ways to do it wrong. But guess who's going to complain? Assuming that the representation matches the actual product, the customers won't complain. Who will complain are product photographers, okay, food photographers, but they're not your customers. And yes, I agree. I'm sorry. I used to be a photographer too. So my heart goes out to you guys. And one of my good friends is the world's best headshot photographer. Okay. He's charging like 3 grand just to get into his studio in New York City. But I tell him, well, he's a little different though. Again, going back to the example, um, not the customer will not complain unless it's something that kind of is false advertising or doesn't really move the needle for them. Now, one more thing that I wanted to mention about my friend who's a headshot photographer on the upside for photographers, right? Especially when you're really, really good at something, you don't have to necessarily worry about AI. Um, and the photography thing, they've been bashed like crazy. There's a reason why I'm not. I mean, I haven't been a photographer for like 10 years now, but I wouldn't do it necessarily now for work. But at his level, I told him, look, people always will want to have something that others can't have. There's always going to be that niche of customers that wants something that others can't have, even if it's just because of the price, right? That's why Louis Vuitton bags sell or Rolex or whatever, right? Um, it's to celebrate something, it's to have a memory, and it has to be captured with something special. Sure, everybody might use their profile picture taken with AI for LinkedIn, but if you're an executive, you want to have this because it's not just a photo. You're actually going there and you record history. Okay, you record the time, you record the place, your yourself at that time, right? So there's always a way to kind of show the value, especially for the really high end stuff and when people are just the best at what they do. And that goes back to what always has been preached, right? Just try to be the best at something. And now it's easier than ever to build a category of one, so to say, because AI can help you define that category of one.
Mm. I see a lot of comments and a few questions from the audience. Anna says it's such a helpful topic. Well, thank you, Anna. Sean is sharing his workflow, his AI workflow. Anshul's sharing some of the tools he's using. And we have a good question from Julia. Julia said, I joined this live stream at the time that you were speaking about audio AI. Sorry if this is a repeat, but do you find that using audio AI really translate into uptick in customer acquisition, increase in revenue, increase in efficiency? I have played with using Wondercraft AI in my podcasts, but found it to have just an entertainment value. Camille, do you have any thoughts on that?
But I assume she's speaking about voiceovers, correct?
That's what I'm assuming as well. Maybe Julia, if you're still around, maybe you can confirm that.
So here's the thing with voiceovers. It's just another thing on the way I do my voiceovers. It's I don't think it moves the needle necessarily, whether it's something it's not going to make or break, okay? But it's a nice ad, especially when you want to create a additional medium on how to consume your content because you know some people just like to listen to things when they are doing something else, right? So it's an easy ad that you can do. I know on Substack it kind of does it automatically. What I like to do is I have my special prompts. By the way, check out Right Click Prompt. It's a free extension that I've vibe coded. There's another thing, right? I was thinking to use this as a lead magnet, right? Having an extension as a lead magnet. Another example of how to do things that weren't possible before. But going back to the audio, so I have a prompt that whenever I'm about to publish a newsletter article, it reads the article and then it kind of transforms it as if the speaker would talk to a friend about the article. So it doesn't read it word by word. It's just another way of differentiating yourself. And most of people don't know, especially for my newsletter, I actually used at some point I used the guy who does Optimus Prime for Transformers. I just stole his voice off of YouTube, but I always kind of felt bad. But it sounded pretty badass. But then I was like, you know what? I need something else. So I made this nice little music intro that I almost never use, unfortunately. But it's kind of gentle. And I made it on suno.com if you guys want to create music. It's another awesome tool that's just super fun. But I used my friend's voice, who is and I asked him for permission. He's a music producer out of LA, and he has this very gentle, almost Michael Jackson like voice that's just kind of really nice fitting. And to me, it's just fun to hear him and it's easy to listen to. But to me, it's just creating a little bit more of a cohesive atmosphere. Again, I don't think it's going to necessarily, in this scenario, it's not going to make or break. But there's other scenarios how you could use it. um, Case in point, what I did before, I had a client presentation. The client couldn't get on a Zoom call, so I just had to record it. And I thought, you know what? Why not just make it with a voiceover that speaks a very specific text that's based on a slideshow presentation with like speaker notes and all that. And then I would just animate the presentation to the beat of the speaking. And something really nice that came out in the end. So there's different ways on how to be creative with that. I haven't found a way to really make or break or convince a client to maybe become a paid client just because of it, but it's a nice touch. And all those details, they really add up.
Mm. I've shared the link to the right-click prompt, the extension in the chat for anyone who wants to check that out. We have almost arrived at the end of the live stream. Like I said earlier in the live stream, we're doing this also because yesterday we published the podcast episode that Camille did for the Right Build Skill podcast. I'll share the link to that as well in a second. Camille, is there any final things you would like to share with anyone watching here?
I would just like to share, subscribe to my newsletter. Just kidding. No, I would like to share that I have a challenge for everybody, and that is learn about AI, especially about the things that you're worried about, how it will replace you. And then the second step is pick a pet project that you really just want to focus on and be really good at, whether this is writing blog posts or maybe creating little books. Okay, try to remix books and make them just really cool. Okay, so this morning I was just thinking, how could I combine the books The World's Greatest Salesman and psychocybernetics? Like, how can I write psychocybernetics in the style of The World's Greatest Salesman? If you don't know all these books, you need to check them out. But just a little bit of a thing on how to become really good at creating those little projects. And then the third thing challenge is basically try to set a metric on how many minds per week you can blow with using AI. Okay. So whether this is creating a podcast about a person on why they're so great, or writing a little handwritten letter that might be authored originally with the help of ChatGPT, all these types of things. I challenge you to do the MBPW metric, which is minds blown per week, and try to get above 5 if you can.
Camille, thanks so much for sharing your insights here today, and thanks everyone for attending the live stream. If you enjoyed this conversation, or if you want to learn more about how to use AI in your online business, check out the podcast that's been released yesterday. You can check that out on the Right Build Skill publication and simply click on podcast. And I would highly recommend subscribing to Camille's publication, the AI Adopters Club, if you want to learn all about how to use AI. Once again, thank you, Camille. Thank you, everyone here, for attending the live session.
Thank you.